Hello, you're very welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the FinalWhistle.ie League of Ireland podcast. No, don't adjust your sets. This isn't Dean Sambra or Alan Keane for that matter. My name is Ciaran Callan and I'm the new host, and I'm really excited to be here for this season. They haven't left us. We're just going in a new direction this season, and no doubt you'll see them during the course of the year. Here's what we have coming up on today's podcast. Athlone Town goalkeeper Miho Schlickerman talks to us as he enters his 13th season in the league. Final Whistle correspondent Diarmuid Kearney talks to us and gives us a comprehensive preview of the Premier Division and the First Division. But taking us in to get us started is the newly appointed Drogheda United captain, Dane Massey. I'm delighted to be joined by a man who needs no introduction when it comes to the League of Ireland, a very highly successful individual who has won a plethora of trophies while at his time as Dundalk, but now he is the captain of near neighbours Drogheda United, where he has been installed as captain for this season and was announced a couple of weeks ago. Dane, you're so welcome to the programme and thanks for coming on. No problem at all, Ciaran. Thanks for having me on. Dane, the hard running is finished. How was pre-season for you?
Yeah, it's been great. It was a tough 6 weeks, but finally we're into the first week of the season, so really looking forward to Friday night now and getting going. Really.
There was while much isn't read, into pre-season games, but you have had some good results. A draw against Derry and wins over Shelbourne and Dundalk in the Malone Cup. It's important, really, for a side like Drogheda, for any side really, to show an early momentum of winning, really.
Yeah, pre-season results really don't matter. It's just about getting lads minutes on the pitch, and we've managed to do that. And we haven't had many injuries over the pre-season, which is great. And there's a real feel of competitiveness within the squad now, so everybody's chomping at the bit to get into the starting 11. And as you said, look, it's vital that you get off to a good start in the league, because it could stand to you later on, which it did for us last year.
You captained the Dundalk side in 2020. You lifted the Malone Cup that night, and then 2 years later you lifted in Drogheda. Was it for Drogheda United in Oriel Park as well? Was it a strange feeling? This is probably the first time since all this COVID stuff happened that there was a big crowd at a Malone Cup derby or a Drogheda Dundalk derby that you've been involved in. Was it weird coming back to Oriel Park and playing for Drogheda, or do you just treat it as any other game?
No, it was. Look, obviously, I spent 8 great years at Dundalk, and it was fantastic. But yeah, it was very strange. Like as you said, it was the first time that there was a crowd back in Oriel Park, and I was captain of Drogheda, so I got a lovely welcome off all the fans. And my parents go to all my games, and they got a lovely reception as well off all the locals saying hello. So as far as I was concerned, with no problems with any of the fans up there, they've been brilliant to me and my family. So look, I really enjoyed it. It's a glorified pre-season game. We beat them 2-1. We had a good performance. A lot of changes in the game as well. But as I said before, we got a lot of lads minutes, which was the most important thing.
Well, wearing the captain's armband is something that you have been used to before. You've worn the captain's armband as a player. Being installed as club captain, it must be a massive honour for you.
Yeah, it's huge. Massive honour for myself, Ciaran. Kevin's put the fate in my hands now, and it's something that I don't take for granted at all. Drogheda is a big club, and it's steeped in great history, and I'm really looking forward to getting going this year. But there's a lot of great experienced players in our squad. You have the likes of Gary Deegan there, Micheál Schlingermann, Chris Lyons, Darren Markey. These are the sort of people that don't really need an armband, that express their views within the change room as well, which is exactly what we need. And I suppose I've just been the one chosen to lead the squad. But look, it's a massive honour, as you said. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Just to touch on what you've just said there, you've got, as you said, experienced players all around the park. Do you think that that's something that's important in modern football, that you've got players who lead the charge all around the pitch and not just the captain leading by example? It has to come from many players around the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. We have a great core of players there. You have Keith at the back, myself, Gary Deegan, Darren Markey, Chris Lyons. These are players that have played hundreds of games in the Premier. And then Kevin's obviously added to it with a lot of young lads. Really exciting talent coming up. And if we can guide them in any way through this season, it'll be in a very exciting Drogheda team.
You just touched on it there. There have been changes, as you said, both on and off the pitch. Firstly, Kevin Doherty coming in as manager, while not getting into the ins and outs of the whole situation, but he's arrived in, he got promoted from assistant manager to manager, if I'm not mistaken, and he's brought Dara Doyle, who previously managed Longford. What have they brought to the table that has been different this season, maybe compared to last year?
Well, for starters, Kevin's enthusiasm. He's a young manager. Dara Doyle's his right hand man. Dara's sessions have been excellent. We've had very, very little injuries, touch wood, but they've been great. They're enthusiastic, both of them. They've great ideas on how we're going to play and how we're going to defend against teams. So they're hungry to do well. And I'm sure, look, their enthusiasm is it's spilling over into our squad, which is fantastic. Like everybody run through a wall for Kevin at the minute. He's that sort of person, like he'd do anything for you. And that's what you want from your manager. You want an approachable manager, and you'd want to do well for him. And I think he's exactly what we need at the minute. He's been excellent, I have to say.
While there have been departures to the squad, James Brown was one of the most notable. One key arrival, in my personal opinion, is that of Georgie Poynton. He's a local lad in terms of Drogheda. He's garnered an awful lot of experience by being at other League of Ireland clubs. You saw him at his time when both of you were at Dundalk. How has he developed as a player, in your opinion, from when you had him, when you saw him firstly at Dundalk to now?
Yeah, Georgie's come on leaps and bounds. I think his time at Shelburne really developed. He played central midfield there, and he's really comfortable on the ball. And I think he'd be playing on the right side for ourselves. So you can see he's more confident. He has an opinion. He's learning how to speak to people on and off the pitch, which is excellent. And I'm sure the way he was dealt with last year with his previous club, he has a bit of grip between his teeth there now, and he really wants to do well this year. And it's especially for his hometown club himself and Ryan. I'm obviously leaving Shells and signing for Drogheda. They really want to do well, and you can see the hunger of the two of them. And two fantastic lads to have as well.
Your first 5 games, a bit of a tricky opening tie away to Finn Harps. I know that it's the old cliche, no one likes going up to Finn Park, but you then got promoted sides, Shelburne and UCD, and then away to Shamrock Rovers. Getting points on the board from some of those games will be vital for you to get off the season off to a great start.
Yeah, exactly. As I said before, having a good start is huge. It's massive. It's massively important, especially for our squad. We have a young squad, so it's important that we get off to a good run. Finn Harps away. There's a lot of weather warnings now on Thursday night coming in, so we'll see how the pitch fares out. Hopefully it goes ahead. It's always a tough place to go. Ollie always signs new players from outside the league, so you don't really know what you're up against until you're literally the whistle goes. So look, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a physical game, as it always is up there. But look, we're chomping at the bit to get going, and really looking forward to it. And I'm sure it'll be a tight game, as it always is up there.
Finally, are you looking forward to getting back on proper competitive action now on Friday night? Now the pre-season, so the off-season, in my opinion, maybe it's because of everything that's gone on. It seemed a longer gap this year than usual.
Yeah, it did. And look, as you said, look, we can't wait to get going playing competitive fixtures. I know pre-season is great and all, but well, it's not really that great. But at least the runs have stopped. Once we can get into these competitive fixtures and get going again, get the head down for a couple of weeks, and do well, it's massive for our players and the squad, But look, everybody wants to start in the starting 11. We have competition all over our starting 11, and we have a big squad, so everybody wants to play. So it's the hard part's up to Kevin now to pick 11, and hopefully we do well.
Listen, Dane, you're an absolute gentleman, and thanks for coming on to talk to us. And hopefully I will see you very, very soon, either in United Park or in a League of Ireland ground soon enough.
Yeah, no problem, Ciaran. Good to see you, pal.
My next guest is the 2021 Athlone Town Player of the Year. Miho Schlickerman is our next guest on the podcast, and he hopes to be part of an Athlone Town side to make an impact on this season's First Division. Michael, it's great. Micheál, I keep calling you Michael. Sorry, it's Micheál Schlingermann. Micheál, it's great to see you, and you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Not at all. First question. Last season, you were given the accolade of the 2021 Player of the Season. You must be absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, I suppose it was a good finish to I suppose maybe a disappointing end to the year in that we didn't kind of consolidate that playoff spot after a good start. But like you said, a nice accolade to get towards the end of the year. Always nice to be recognised by your fellow players as well within the club. It sometimes means that little bit more when you receive that award. So, like I said, getting to my age now, it's nice to pick up these awards.
Paul Doolan departed as manager. He came in last season. He's been replaced by Martin Russell. He's arrived at the dugout at Athlone. A man of very high caliber and experience. What has pre-season been like under him? Because I'm not too sure if you've crossed paths either as a manager or coach before this.
Yeah, look, I would have obviously played against Martin's teams quite a lot throughout over the years. When he was in charge of UCD, then he was at Limerick and Bray. And I suppose when I actually left Sligo Rovers back in 2017, I went to train. I was hoping to sign for Martin at Bray, but obviously with all the restrictions that they were put under, it was actually 2018, but with all the restrictions they were put under at the time, it just meant that I couldn't sign. So that was unfortunate. So I have spoken to him before. I've dealt with him before, and I suppose I was happy when he came in because we've had that relationship in the past.
3 Dutch players arrived this week. I have the names here, and I'm probably going to make an absolute hash of them. But you've got Johan van Gruyten, Quincy Kinnessana, and Yuri Harbing. How have they settled into training? And is this now, because with Brexit and everything, is Ireland now becoming an option for players to come in and get senior team experience playing in the League of Ireland?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's becoming a little bit more consistent in recent years, isn't it? You're seeing more foreign players and more players from the EU coming into the league. I suppose it's new now for the first division, isn't it? It would have always kind of been your full-time clubs bringing players in and hoping to unearth like a hidden gem. I have to say the 3 lads have settled really, really well. They're living in Athlone, so it's obviously going to be a small change of culture for them as well. But look, yeah, 3 great young lads so far, and so far so good in terms of their footballing ability. They really did stand out. They played a game for us earlier on in pre-season. We played like an in-house game, and they stood out. So obviously Martin liked what he saw, and look, we'll try and gel as quick as possible now because the season's obviously starting this week.
You have a difficult opening series of games with Treaty, who were the surprise package last year. You've got Cork and Galway also in the mix of those fixtures. Do you think that from a player's perspective, the first division has become a more competitive outlet than it has been in previous seasons?
Oh, without a doubt. I suppose I'm only involved in the first division the last 2 years, obviously with Galway and Athlone. Before that, I would have played the majority in the Premier. But you can see that the standards have lifted massively. You've now got more full-time clubs in the league. You've got players that, I would have been playing consistently against in the Premier, now playing their football consistently in the first division, so that says a lot about the league as well. Obviously, those same players are same age bracket as myself, so you might drop through the league that way. But it is definitely, look, the league has strengthened. I suppose last year was probably the most competitive season in terms of how many teams were in the mix for that playoff spot. Like you said there, Treaty then came out of probably nowhere. The only people that might have thought they deserved, not deserved, but like we're going to end up there were them themselves, maybe, So it's definitely competitive. And look, we've a big job to be competitive again this year.
Looking back on your career, you've had some fantastic highlights. Has there been one? Well, I'm not saying that you're going to retire anytime soon or anything, Miho. I'm not going to insult you, but has there been one that has really, really stood out for you?
I think, like, going back to, and as a few Dundalk heads on this, isn't there? But like, the Drogheda days for me really would stand out in terms of, because of the success we had at the time. We qualified for Europe, finished second in the league, won the EA Sports Cup. Then the following season got to 3 cup finals. Now I know those 3 cup finals didn't end the way we wanted them to end. I suppose if you ask a standout moment within all that, would be that semi-final that we actually, beat Dundalk and got to the final, got to the Aviva, got the club back to an FAI Cup final, which was a huge deal. And especially as well because that was my first time as the number 1 keeper. I broke through it as the number 1 that season. and to have such a successful season was great for me. I'm not going to say it's gone all downhill since, but I had a couple of good years after that as well, in particular 2015, and then the move back to Sligo. That first year at Sligo I saw as a success as well. But if you were to ask a standout moment, that would probably be it.
You pulled off, just to kind of go touch on that semi-final now, I'm not even going to start talking about the incidents going down to time men, but I just remember near close to the end of the game, Tiernan Mulvena broke through. He was one-on-one with you, and he hit an absolute. It looked destined for that top right hand corner. Your hand just tipped it over the bar, and I think that was just one of those kind of sliding doors moments that it could have been a case that it could have gone to a replay. Who knows what would have happened? But you pulled the save off that got you into the final.
Yeah, look, again, I didn't think of it like that really at the time, because that game, I don't know if you remember, it was a weird game where two players got sent off, and like, apart from that moment at the end, I really had nothing to do, because Dundalk sat back, tried to soak up any sort of pressure and just hit us on the break, which didn't really happen up until that moment. And like that, I was lucky, I suppose, to make that look, not lucky, but like I was, appreciate making that save and getting us to the final.
Away from soccer, you've been involved in GAA in various capacities. If I'm not mistaken, you were involved with the Mayo ladies, senior panel over the past couple of years. Is there any aspects, to GAA, in terms of coaching and stuff like that you can, in your position in particular, that you can kind of translate into your performances as a goalkeeper in the League of Ireland?
Yeah, I suppose as a coach, I try and focus with the girls on those skill areas, those techniques and, catching the ball, kicking the ball and footwork and things like that, being able to move as quickly as possible, being as powerful as possible and doing everything with, correct technique, so that when it comes to making a save, you make the save as easy as possible for yourself, because you've practiced the skill so often. Other than that, I think, the games are very, very different in terms of the actions that you complete throughout the game. Especially when I went back, I did actually struggle to get to grips with GAA again, because there was so much kicking. You're kicking a different ball, it's a different weight. The game is different. The different moving parts happen within the game. Obviously the action of striking a ball from A to B is the same, but it's where and when and when to do it and when not to do it. So that was the stuff that I would have picked up throughout that year. And I have to say that year was probably one of the best things that happened, after the kind of the downer of having to leave Sligo, not by my own choice, and having to move back home and not be involved in the League of Ireland. I didn't have a club to go to, because, like I said, when I did hope to go to Bray, they couldn't sign me because they were under restrictions. So I missed out on a full half a season of football there. And the timing of that Gaelic move probably came at a good time for me, and it just kind of rekindled all that professionalism stuff and mindset and all that, because I have to say, like, these lads that play Gaelic football, especially in Mayo, and the standard of professional, what I say is just so high. I took a lot away from it, and I'm trying to bring a lot of that back. I tried to bring a lot of it back to Galway when I went there, and then now with Athlone as well.
Finally, your hopes and aspirations. If I'm not mistaken, this is your 13th season in and around League of Ireland football. Your hopes and aspirations for this year.
Well, it's funny actually. I think I made my debut against Bohemians in 2009, and the first game of the season now will be against Waterford with Brian Murphy there again. So that'll be nice. I kind of think about these things a bit like those little things. I think he's doing better to be still playing than I am 13 years later. But look, I suppose from our targets and our aspirations for the season, we need to be competitive again. I think it's the same as last year, where we just need to build on the year before. So the year before, we definitely accomplished that last year, but now it's time to kick on again. That would mean probably being in the shot for a playoff spot towards the end of the season. It's going to be even harder again this year with the teams in the league, the amount of full-time teams, the way the teams have, I suppose, recruited this off-season as well. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be a challenge that we're well up for. Hopefully we can come in under the radar a bit and go about our business in a way maybe similar to what Treaty done last year, and we'll see where we are then at the end of the season. We'll probably just have to take it game by game and phase by phase.
Listen, Miho, thank you very much for your presence here this evening and for coming on to the show. Very, very best of luck for the season, and hopefully we'll cross paths at some stage during the course of the year.
Please God, yeah. Thanks a million, and I appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you.
Now we will speak to one of our reporters from FinalWhistle.ie. I'm delighted to be joined by Diarmuid Kearney, who will speak to us about how he feels the League of Ireland is going to shape up this season, both in the Premier Division and the First Division. Diarmuid, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Ciaran. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Diarmuid, the off-season was a little less quiet than usual in some respects, but there were some managerial moves. We're going to start with St. Patrick's Athletic. They looked very, very impressive against Shamrock Rovers last Friday night. You know, they were very unlucky to lose the President's Cup. Are they going to be thereabouts to challenge Shamrock Rovers again this year?
I reckon they will, I reckon they will still have the chance. Now, it is dubbed the greatest league in the world, so you don't really know what can happen at the best of times. I think Shamrock Rovers do look like they have that pedigree and the squad depth to do it again this year. In terms of St. Pat's, I think they'll be thereabouts. Whether they can regain a good run of form now, whether they can take what they've learned from the last night and put it into practice this year and try and challenge Rovers for the title, it will be tough. Like there's no doubt in saying that, but it is hard to predict. They were looking strong last year and then they ended up fading away toward the end, and Rovers of course picked up their title again. So it is tough to call. I think they will be a contender, but I don't know if they will be the main contender to Rovers this year or not.
One of the teams that I've picked to really kind of go for a promotion, or for not a promotion push, but to really kind of move on to that next level is Derry City. They've recruited extremely well. They've been very quiet in their recruitment as well. It's just been there's been noise from outside of Derry, inside it's been quite quiet. They've done really well in the off season. Rory Higgins, I think, has gotten the balance right. Do you think realistically he has an opportunity to bring the title to Foyle's side, or is it just that little bit too soon?
I reckon he does. I reckon he does have that challenge in him this year. I mean, last year Derry they had a horrific start to the season, and then he came in and he steadied the ship and he got them to finish near the top of the table. And it wasn't talked about at the start of last year with Derry anyway. And bringing in the likes of Michael Duffy and the McElhaney brothers, like you couldn't ask for a better acquisitions in the summer transfer window to bring you into a new season, or the off season, or whatever kind of window you want to call it. But they definitely look strong. There's a great history of football up in Derry, and I'm sure there will be plenty of rumblings around that camp this year that maybe they could be the contenders. They were the ones who I was looking at, to be honest, that would probably be the best challenge for Shamrock Rovers this year. And if they can put what they learned last year into practice, definitely they'll be comfortably at the top this year for sure.
I think also the acquisition of a player the quality of Will Patching and Cameron Dummigan. I know there's 4 lads essentially who have gone from Dundalk, but what they bring to the table is that, McElhaney and Duffy, especially league winning title and European experience, as does Cameron Dummigan. Will Patching scored a vital goal in Europe last year. All of that builds up to, but the style of football that those lads play is mirrored to what Rory Higgins wants from his side as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, they were a bit hard done by last year in Europe, and then they took it back into the league, and they did look strong and comfortable. Now Rory's no stranger to the league. He knows the ins and outs. He knows Derry. He's definitely a passionate manager, to say the least. We've seen that numerous times last year as well. You do mention Dundalk as well. They didn't have a great season last year, but new owners and a couple of changes in the squad, they could look like contenders as well. They might surprise a few this year, as well as that. But for me, it's probably Derry looking the most comfortable to challenge for the title. But anything can happen in this league. We've seen it numerous times at this stage.
One of the newcomers promoted last year, and they've changed manager as well, is Shelbourne. Damien Duff is their new manager. He a bit like Rory Higgins was part of a section of Stephen Kenny's Republic of Ireland setup. He's played under some fantastic managers. He wants to promote obviously a good footballing side, but does he necessarily, from his recruitment, have the players to do that at the moment, or will it take maybe a year to stay in the Premier Division then for him to build on?
I reckon he might be given the year. I don't see them being a mid-table to a top-table side straight away. Like, they might struggle. I know you have the likes of UCD and Harps who are probably going to be challenging for that relegation spot. You know, Harps have been thereabouts over the last number of years, to be honest, around the foot of the table. Like, definitely being, you know, if he brings in younger lads, Damien Duff, a lot of people have watched Damien Duff play in the Premier League. They've watched him play for the Republic of Ireland as well. He's definitely a man that can give that experience. Whether he can take it from the field into the dressing room now is going to be a completely different thing. As you mentioned, he has been a part of backroom staff as well. He's been a coach, assistant manager, and everything like that. But has he got the pedigree of a top tier manager? I believe he does. I think he can steer Shelbourne in the right direction, but I think they might find it tough at the start. But you know, I definitely wouldn't rule them out to stay in the division this year for sure. I don't think they'll face the wooden spoon and be back in the first division next year.
While it's easier for me to speak on Dundalk, obviously, you know, but I want your opinion. There's been a lot of changes off the pitch. The departure of Pete Six Investments, that's back into local ownership with StatSports, and Andy Connolly of FastFix. They brought in Stevie O'Donnell as their new manager. Would you say that Stephen O'Donnell, while he was arguably their most successful captain that the club has ever had, could it be a case that he could replicate what Stephen Kenny did with Dundalk in a new form?
There's definitely a chance for it. I mean, you know, you've seen it in different leagues where a captain has come in and he has, you know, taken part of his old club and steadied the ship and whatever. But I believe that, you know, he does have that fan base in Dundalk. He can definitely get the supporters behind him. I know there has been a lot of unrest with the Dundalk support over the last number of years with the owners that they had, that didn't want them anymore. And then someone like O'Donnell comes in now, they're under different ownership. It's the fans now. It's one of those similar to what Cork City have done as well. Mm-hmm. You know, if he can get the players behind him, if he can get the rub of the green and make sure that, you know, I suppose everything goes his way, there's no injuries or anything like that, I believe he could definitely steady the ship. I was in the off season, I was quietly looking at Dundalk, it has to be said, of those, you know, last year everyone was kind of saying, oh, it looks like Dundalk are dead and buried after their performance last year. They mightn't be as dominant as what they once were, but in the off season they made a few little moves that, you know, they could, especially bringing in the new manager, that it wouldn't be surprising if Dundalk are challenging again this year. It depends on if they can just get it together and if his tactics can work, or, you know, it all depends on how we see them play on Friday or whatever way they work out for the season, you know.
The other promoted side is UCD. They got up via the playoff, if I'm not mistaken. Andy Myler's side have gotten plenty of plaudits, you know, for their style of football and the manner they have lost players, as has been the form with UCD in many years. Can they hold their own, or is it going to be, as you said, a wooden spoon and maybe a swift exit back down to the first division?
It is going to be tough for UCD, as you said. Like, they are constantly that, you know, it's like a revolving door of a team. They're, you know, can they bring the same as what they brought last year? I don't think so, when they're coming up against the likes of a Shamrock Rovers, Bohemians, those type of teams who have strengthened definitely this window. It is to be said, you know, will they be a bit like Longford last year, and you're sure they are going to be the relegation threatened from the off? But look, they have an experienced team there, a manager who's definitely going to get the best out of his players, and whether they can challenge and try and get out of there and maybe do the opposite of how they got up into the division, actually win the relegation playoff against whoever comes up from the first division, it's going to be tough. You know, someone like Ollie Horgan at Finn Harps has been there before. He knows what relegation is like. He knows how to get out of a relegation battle. So it's going to be, they're definitely going to be testing them this year. Whether they can do it now is to be said, but it's definitely going to be a learning experience for the majority of that panel.
If we can turn our attention to the first division, starting with Cork City. Has Colin Healy, he's done an awful lot of recruitment again in the off season. Do you think Colin is finally getting that little Midas touch that he could go for that promotion push this year?
I believe he has. Now, it is going to be tough again for Cork, as in, they really didn't do as well as they wanted to last year. Colin Healy is definitely a manager who's well known in Cork, and he's brought in a good few players that can definitely challenge. I've seen them down in Kearney when they were playing Killarney Celtic. They looked like a strong team. They brought in a few familiar faces. They've got a good few young lads coming up as well. I believe they're definitely going to challenge for the top of the table. They could end up becoming league winners in the end, but it all depends on whether they can put what they've learned into practice. If these new acquisitions either sink or swim is going to be a learning curve for them. But they do have definitely 4 or 5 players who could definitely get them into promotion should they just get the results going their way this season.
Trinity United came into the league last year, and there was, there's a lot of articles about him, that the fact that he assembled a squad, they ran Dundalk very, very close in the FEI Cup. They were just outside the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, do you think that they're another side that could get promoted via the playoffs? Is that realistically where their target is this year? Because Limerick is just a hotbed of football. It's always been, and anytime you go down there, you just know how impressive they can be.
Yeah, they've been like it was a Cinderella story last year when they came into it and they turned around, and I think they assembled the squad in 3 days between when they got the go ahead from the FAI to say, yeah, you're a team now. They got their squad together. They assembled whatever they could. Tommy Barrett was the manager again. He was the manager at Limerick. He done his level best at Limerick as well. And then he turned around and they made the playoff semi-finals. And don't think anyone expected it last year. Now they've lost a good few players to Premier Division clubs. I know Ty Ryan, who was phenomenal in goal for them last year, has left. They have made a couple of smart acquisitions though, in what they've done. I believe that they definitely have it. As you said, Limerick is definitely a hotbed of football. Back when they were Limerick FC, the support down there in the Markets Field was massive. When they were at home on a Friday night under the lights, it was something to behold. So hopefully with the younger lads coming in, you'll see it. But look, it has to be said.
Now, the other sites that we have to, kind of look at, one of them that I've seen already this season, they look absolutely very, very impressive. I know it's pre-season and stuff like that, but Waterford under Ian Morris, they will be very much a side that feel that, without getting into the politics of the situation, they probably feel very hard done by that they're in the first division. They lost in the semi-final. I've just been informed that it was Treaty that made the semi-finals of the playoffs this year. So for a first season, that was absolutely excellent. In relation to Waterford, they're going to be. It looks like could be a battle down in the south of the country for that automatic promotion spot, if not the playoffs.
Yeah, no team wants to lose the promotion relegation playoff, and Waterford were kind of thereabouts last year. And you were thinking, look, will they stay up? Will they go down? And then they lost to UCD in the end. Now they've kept. When I was looking at them, I was kind of saying, right, what's going to happen to Waterford now in the off season? Are they going to lose a lot of their bigger names to Premier Division clubs? But they've managed to hold on to a lot of players. They're definitely an experienced team in their own right. They will be kicking themselves that they're not in the top flight again this year. We've seen it a lot last year where they were testing a lot of teams, and they're definitely thereabouts. Whether it's going to be a case of they're just going to run home with it this year, I doubt they will find it that easy. I think it might take a while for them to try and get a little bit of a momentum shift going in there, but they're definitely one team to watch. You do have the likes of, you look at Treaty, Waterford and Cork, 3 Munster teams that are looking very, very strong. One of them, I think, will get out of the division, but it's going to be hard one to call in the end, to be honest. And
Ian Morris as manager, he got his Shelbourne side promoted, and then once again got there was a managerial change there. Do you think he has a point to prove as well, that if he's given the backing by Richard Forrest, that he could prove a lot of doubters wrong, getting them promoted and keeping them in the Premier Division next year if given the time?
Yeah, I think Ian is a fantastic manager. I was actually
Yeah.
surprised to see him go down again. I was thought, he did so well with Shelburne last year. I was like, he's going to come in, he's going to steer Shelburne. Then he left. Damien Duff came in there. I was like, okay. Then he was announced by Waterford, and I went, that's a perfect move for Waterford. You've just been relegated back down to the first division. Who else but the manager who won it the year before you went down to steady the ship again? He does have a point to prove. Whether he can do it again with Waterford is going to be a tough one to call. But if he can get there and get him into the Premier Division, make a couple of more smart moves come that transfer window, depending on who becomes available. It's hard to call contracts and everything like that. It seems to be a revolving door for teams around the League of Ireland where players kind of move here and there, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's definitely a manager that should be in the Premier Division, and whether he can get them up there, it's going to be a very interesting story down in Waterford to see if he can get them back up again.
One of the most unusual stories, I say, from the first division has been the acquisition or the merger between Cabinteely and Bray. It seems that Cabinteely are the kind of how would you say, the name holders, so to speak, but then they're playing in the Carlisle grounds. It's an unusual story, and it seems that every couple of years Bray seems to rear their head that there's something happens with Bray, but this looks to be a merger that will see the development of football in that kind of south of Dublin, north of Wicklow region, and hopefully it'll reap rewards, because Cabinteely, by all extensive purposes, are a very good side for merging talent. Is it a case of merging an established club like Bray with emerging talent like Cabinteely to make the perfect combination? Because it seemed that the two of them as single entities couldn't sustain a position in the League of Ireland.
Yeah, Cabinteely struggled last year in the first division. Bray were mid-table. They weren't the best team in the division by far, but they were definitely thereabouts. Hopefully, when you merging two teams together, we've rarely seen it happen before. We've seen districts coming into the League of Ireland, especially at youth level. We've seen mergers of different teams. Whether it'll be a success story is going to be a hard one, because we've never seen it before. Bray have been thereabouts, but they haven't really shone in the division for the last number of years. Cabinteely the same. They haven't really gotten the rub of the green. They've gotten their bouts in the cups. They've developed a little bit of a run, but they haven't really come home with any silverware. But they have Pat Devlin as well there, and he's definitely someone who, if you want to merge two teams together, having him there in a director of football role or whatever you want to call his role there, to be honest, at the ship, it's going to be an interesting story whether they can, can you put two teams who have struggled together and get a success story out of them. Stranger things have happened in the division, but I don't see them this year. I don't see them challenging for promotion, but I think if they are developing, it could be 2-3 years. But if they can develop the local talent in that area and just get a pool of players together, I believe they could be a strong team in the next few years anyway, for sure.
Wexford are a side that there's been a lot of praise for Ian Ryan since he's gone in as manager of the Southeast club. Do you think that, I say from a personal perspective, I think maybe they're just that little bit short or a little bit light at the moment. But as you said, stranger things are happening. They look like a side, well, with Ian Ryan at the helm, a very experienced player and a very good manager by all intents and purposes. They could be a side that could be a little bit of a surprise package this year.
They could, as I have said, the stranger things have happened. Now, Wexford haven't really got going over the last number of years. They have struggled. They've not really, done much, to be honest. Now, a good manager coming in, if he can get a group of players together, bring up a few emerging talents, anything can come out of a youth academy. He might be able to get something there. If he can get an established starting 11, no injuries, be able to hold on to those players and get them the best out of them, definitely they could. I don't think based on what their squad is looking like at the moment, I don't think they have the the challenge in them of a Cork, Waterford, Galway, or Treacy. I think they'll be the top 4 sides in the division. Now, whether Wexford could claim a massive scalp is going to be an interesting one. You know, they've taken them down to the southeast. It could be an interesting one, whether they could bring a Cork or a Galway down there and manage to nab a point or 2 there, or whatever. But you know, I don't think Wexford have enough in them. But like I said, stranger things have happened. They could be a mid-table side, but you know, whether Athlone or Longford can do better than them this year is going to be an interesting one.
They're actually my next club to look at. Really is Longford Town. They've had a change in manager as well. They've signed quite well in the postseason. They're a side that got promoted via the playoffs. They really, really struggled, unfortunately, in the Premier Division last year. I mean, Longford, in my opinion, is a club that has a hotbed of it's just an untapped source at the moment. It just, unfortunately, I think one of its biggest downfalls is that it's not actually in the town of Longford. The ground, it's very, very kind of far out. But in saying that, they have a very passionate supporter. They're a community based in regard that it's very much run by volunteers, and they seem to be very passionate about their club. But do you think at this moment in time they need to maybe, now I'm probably going to get shot by a couple of Longford fans for saying this, but do they need to stay in the first division maybe for a year or two before going for that big promotion push again?
I believe so. You know, like it's very difficult for a team to get relegated and bounce back straight away. Now you have mentioned there a new manager comes in, and yet another team with a new manager,
the former player, and James Keddy is coming in as the assistant manager. So it's like James Keddy. I know him from his time as a player. He's very, very successful. Gary Cronin's a former player. It's a good management combination, but I'm just thinking that this boom to bust model might not work for them in that regard.
Yeah, you know, if you don't have the quality on the pitch, that's where it's going to be at the end of the day. You know, and if they can, last year wasn't the best year for them. Now, as you mentioned, their support, even when they were confirmed for relegation, you saw them playing, and their support was great. They have a great set of supporters. It is going to be a learning curve for them, dropping down again, whether they can, you saw it with Cork. When Cork got relegated down, they struggled. Are they going to be similar? I don't think they have made as big signings as they would have hoped just to try and get them back up. But it's going to be tough for them. I would maybe give them a year to 2 to try and get their feet again and see if they can establish themselves again a little bit better. But I think that going down the division now, the teams that have been in there already that are coming back into it have their homework done a bit more. They know, okay, we're going into the division again next year. We know what to do. They have strengthened a bit better. So I don't think they will be top 4, top 5. I think they might struggle again this year, but it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks just to see how the league plays off at the start, to be honest.
Okay, I'm going to go through some quick predictions with you. Winner of the Premier Division, just quick fire.
Shamrock Rovers. I cannot see it. Galway.
Forgot about Galway. All this talk, I completely forgot about them. John Caulfield's very, very passionate man. You know that from your time at Cork, and I know him as well. Those titanic battles, himself and Stephen Kenny. I think having Conor McCormick there is a huge coup as well. So they'll definitely, I think they're a dark horse. FEI Cup winners. I don't think there's an EA Sports Cup this year. So FEI Cup winners.
I'm going to go with a long shot and say Bohemians.
My money's on Derry. Yeah, my money's on Derry. They like winning the cup.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a league and cup double for Shamrock Rovers. I think it'll be one of the other teams. But if it could, if it was a Rovers Bohemians derby in the final, that'd be an interesting one. But definitely, it all depends on the cup run. If a team like Derry or Bows are maybe 7-8 points off and they're not going to chase a team like Shamrock Rovers, definitely they could focus on the cup. It all depends on what way the league plays out. Yeah, they're definitely not wrong with Derry. It looks definitely looks like a cup could end up on their neck of the woods fairly shortly, to be honest.
Surprise package of the year. Who's going to be the surprise package team or? Oh, that's a tough one.
I was going to say Dundalk when I was talking to them earlier, when I was mentioning about them earlier. Everyone rolled off last year coming in this year. Have they done enough? I think they have. I think they've definitely got a good club model going ahead now to challenge for that, to be honest.
Okay. I would say Dundalk as well, but that'd be me being biased. I just want Cork back promoted so that I can make my trips back down to Turner's Cross. I always miss those trips. Surprise Pat. I've already done that. So player of the season
in the Premier Division, it's going to be an interesting one between maybe Jack Byrne and Graham Burke as to who from Shamrock Rovers is going to be the standout. If you can get the two of them together in a team firing, it's going to be curtains for the majority of the teams they come up against. They are just sensational players to watch. When Rovers had the title wrapped up last year, and even before the season finished, they had already stamped their intent for the next year by bringing in one of the league's best exports of the last number of years, and they've also got Richie Towell in there as well. Definitely Jack Byrne coming back, if he can light up the league like he did a number of years ago, definitely he would be my standout player of the season, to be honest.
Just to let you know that there is a new initiative that has been launched today where every League of Ireland team can enter the Bank of Ireland Healthy Football League. What this is that the media event was launched today at Diarmuid Park with Bank of Ireland Healthy Football League ambassadors Rob Heffernan and a number of League of Ireland players. This will see fans downloading the app, and through their whatever device that they have, they're able to sync their activity during the course of the week. They're able to earn points, and the points go towards their clubs. So there's going to be an initiative to see who is going to be the fittest of the League of Ireland clubs in terms of their fans. Let's just hope the players' stat sports how would you say, their yokes aren't put onto it during the course of the season. Listen, we're going to go on to our next segment, which is an announcement on FinalWhistle.ie, which is going to be around the grounds on Final Whistle. Diarmuid, it's a new initiative. We're going to be reporting live on the spot, a reaction at full time. It's an exciting venture for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be something that we haven't done before. It's going to be straight after the final whistle on Final Whistle, the clues in the name with us, to be honest. So yeah, I'll be ending up presenting it. We'll have all our different reporters then at the grounds. We'll be chatting to them to get the full-time reaction then as the whistle goes. So it'll be interesting. Definitely we'll have, if anyone wants to pay attention to it, is definitely going to be on our social channels anyway on the night in question. So we're going to be starting a Friday, and it's going to be an interesting season, and we're going to be looking forward to presenting all of the information to League of Ireland supporters across the country and the world, in fact, to be honest.
It's a new initiative, as we were saying, but I don't think it's something that really has been touched on, and I think it's an important thing that people kind of want immediate reaction and immediate information straight away. So for us to be able to give that from a journalistic perspective it's quite interesting.
Yeah, to have that report immediately at full time, that people can be, they're sat in their seat coming out of the ground. Say you're at Shamrock Rovers and UCD on Friday night. They're at 8:00, so their kickoff is going to be a little bit later. They can come on and be like, okay, we're halfway through now. Here we go on, and we're checking out the results. You're watching the lads talk away about the results from the night. You're able to get your information nice and quick. It's there on your phone. Everyone can have it. So it's a great initiative that we're going to have for the next year anyway.
Just to go through the fixtures, starting with the Premier Division, Shelbourne versus St Patrick's Athletic, a Dublin derby straight away. Then we have Dundalk versus Derry City. Shamrock Rovers take on promoted UCD. Finn Harps have got a tricky tie against Drogheda United, and Sligo Rovers versus Bohemians. Diarmuid, is there a game in any of those that particularly stand out?
For me, it would definitely be Dundalk and Derry. I know I was talking about them when we were looking at the season ahead. They look like two title contenders. That's definitely my my standout fixture from the calendar for the Premier Division anyway, to start things off. It's definitely a tricky first game for Damien Duff at Shelburne. He's definitely up against it, as are UCD coming up against the title holders in Shamrock Rovers. I don't think they will find it easy going to start things off, but definitely the game between Dundalk and Derry is going to be a very interesting tie between two title contenders, European contenders. Definitely go ahead this year.
And in relation to the first division, we've got Wexford versus Drogheda United, we've got Bray Wanderers versus Cork City, Athlone versus Waterford, and then Longford versus Cove Ramblers. If I'm not mistaken, Bray Wanderers, Cabinteely. I've got, my mind's gone a blank as to who is the bye, who's got their bye this week. But in relation to, it would be Galway, if I'm not mistaken. It would be Galway that have got their bye this week. The game that sticks out for me in relation to that is Bray Wanderers versus Cork City. Cork have a tricky tie up to Wicklow, but it would be interesting to see, because Bray have recruited very, very well, so it would be interesting to see how Colin Healy's side fare against them. It's going to be a tricky tie altogether, but looking at those games, they're all going to be very, very competitive.
Yeah, it's definitely a very competitive opening weekend in the first division. There's no ties where I see a standout winner, to be honest. There's no minnows going up against a team that are definitely going to be thereabouts for the season ahead. I don't think there will be too many shocks on Friday night, but it all depends on Treaty United going up to Wexford. Can they come away with the 3 points and build on what they did last year? As you mentioned there, Colin Healy taking his team up to Bray. Are they going to come home with the win as well? It's going to be a tough one, but definitely a team like Galway, who aren't going to be playing this weekend, will be keeping a tight eye on the results and just seeing how the teams perform on the opening night before they take to the field in a week's time.
Do you think with the fact that they're going to be able to access kind of certain games through, the match passes and one thing another, that you said that they're going to keep an eye on things? I'm not going to say it's an unfair advantage, but in some respects it gives them an indication of how teams are set up, and they've been given, so they'll be able to go into the game fully prepared next week.
Yeah, tactical analysis and all that was prominent in the league even before COVID, but now that we have the facilities where you can watch any game via the streams and be able to watch it on playback as well, it's going to be huge for every team, especially Galway. Now they can have all the games available to them. John Caulfield can watch it back. He can analyse when they're going into their first game. They can see, okay, this is how they played, this is how they lined up shape wise. Can we see where to exploit them? Where were this team doing well as where they were doing bad? It's definitely evolved in the league over the last few years, but we were seeing it before, but more so with COVID, the ability to watch those streams has led to a lot more advancements in the analysis side of it, and definitely the coaches will be getting their money's worth out of it for sure this year.
That's absolutely brilliant. Diarmuid, very best of luck, and I'll see you definitely. I'll be talking to you on Friday. And that's all we have for this week's programme. My thanks to Drogheda United's Dane Massey, Athlone Town's Miho Schlickerman, and Diarmuid, who has been a fantastic correspondent on FinalWhistle.ie with me. My producer, Coneen Duffy, and Breffney area, and wherever you are this weekend following your League of Ireland club, whether it's Ballywofay or Ferrycarrig, enjoy every second, as every single League of Ireland club dares to dream for 2022. Take care, and we'll see you next week.